And it's live, and we're recording. 3, 2, 1. Woo! Welcome to episode 1 of the Phoenix Fantasy Baseball Dynasty League YouTube channel. I'm your host, current league champ, owner of Team Eddie Moneyball, Eddie Willis. The PPBDL YouTube channel could be brought to us by Wit Industries, the unofficial trash can provider of the MLB. If you aren't using Wit, you ain't winning shit. On today's episode, I'm going to go back and look at all of our amateur drafts, beginning with the inaugural 2016 draft and bringing us to the 2020 amateur draft. I'll highlight some of my favorite picks, some of the team owners that I like to look at during the draft, as well as the top 10 available players for the upcoming amateur draft. You know, looking back 5 years ago, it's really crazy how far our league has come, as well as the fantasy baseball industry as a whole. You know, a couple years ago, you were looking at maybe 2 or 3 reputable sites that you would trust, Baseball Prospectus, Baseball America, maybe the MLB channel, to provide us with those prospect lists and rankings. And while they might have had some of the data, they don't have any of the StatCast data that we're looking at now. So you see prospects being identified a lot sooner nowadays, and it's you can hop on Twitter and see 40 to 50 guys that you really trust that have the video and the stats to back up their analysis. So it really is amazing how far we've come, and I think we've only gotten better as a league throughout the years, and I'm really excited to see this year's draft because I really don't think that we have a lot of bust picks. A lot of guys are doing their homework and really getting after it and getting those prospects that are one day going to be the studs in the MLB. I'd like to give a shout out to the commish, Josh. He does a great job, fantastic job, you know, working with Fantrax to make sure that we get our amateur draft done. It is the number one draft that I look forward to in the off season, and I can already see the text coming in today trying to push it up to this coming Sunday. I hope it stays for March 1st because I've got my twins' baptism on Sunday, and that one is not going to be one that I'm going to be able to get out of. So the Army has some really great sayings. Fubar, go pound sand, paint rocks, 11 bang bang, the boomstick, and probably the one that's utilized the most is the big green weenie. And Jared's got tons more on the non-commissioner officer side as well. So my favorite one that's actually in my email signature block is, if it's stupid but works, it isn't stupid. And with all due respect, I think our 2016 inaugural draft was stupid. It might have worked, but we definitely fixed it. So here's the genesis of the 2016 draft. It's really challenging to do an amateur draft, you know, thinking about 5 years ago, without a lot of the capabilities that we've got on Fantrax now. So I think Josh did a great job of trying to figure out a way to get 180 guys on our teams as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So the route we took was an email draft, and I think it was 3 players at a time were nominated, and then everyone had to get their bids into Josh, and then Josh would compile who had the highest bid and who utilized a priority. That was a random priority list before the draft started on the player. My biggest criticism of the draft was capping the limit to $10. And I understand the logic of, we don't want these prospects to go in $20, $30 and sit in our minor leagues and maybe never be called up or become busts. You know, I think at the time Byron Buxton was probably one of, if not the most hyped prospect at the time. He definitely would have ended up with an insane amount over $10. I think I Have 7 Cats ended up with him with the 5th player picked or nominated, and he was utilized with a priority of $10. So I think, hindsight being 2020, the best way to do it now obviously would be just to do it in the Fantrax draft room. But at the time, wanting to limit how much these amateurs ended up costing, I think this was probably the best way, fairest way, because it was a random draft order for the priority. But it's one of those that this draft really shaped where our league is now in the last couple champions. So just going through some of the list here, Yeah, we've got Byron Buxton and Corey Seager were and Joey Gallo were a couple of the first name guys, and maybe they haven't become studs, but they're well worth their price and really solid players still. Some of the guys that really busted out recently, Yoan Moncada and Tim Anderson, Trey Turner. Jared made an amazing pick and has just been seeing the fruits of that pick really play out every single year, and hopefully this year, if Trey Turner can stay healthy, he could be a top 5 player with those steals. We have Blake Snell, Rafael Devers, Jose Barrios, Austin Meadows is really coming on strong now, Alex Bregman with the Astros, Ozzie Albies, Aaron Judge, Mondesi, Gary Sanchez, Josh Hader, some of the big guys that are becoming studs now. Victor Robles was one of the top prospects that's hopefully going to bat higher in the Nationals order this year and really come around for me. Jack Flaherty really is coming on strong. Matt Olson with one of the greatest contracts in our league right now. My biggest mistake, Cody Bellinger and Trevor Story were some of the all-stars, guys that are going in the top 3-4 rounds in every draft now. So you can see that these guys are really playing vital, crucial roles in our league on cheap, controllable contracts. And going back and looking at it, it's amazing to see how many of these guys ended up on different teams. I'm going to throw up a slide here that shows, some of these guys, while they're studs now, were really impactful trade chips. The biggest one being, I traded away Cody Bellinger to try and win now and get some veteran power, and it didn't work. Cody Bellinger's become, Rookie of the Year and an MVP candidate on, I think, an $8 contract that's still controllable with multiple position eligibility. If you take your time and you really want to invest in the prospect game, it can definitely pay off. I think to kind of circle back and put a pin in the 2016 draft, it wasn't the most effective, and it had some impacts today still, but everyone had a chance to bid on every player, and you really got your guy with the priority list. You had to use strategy pretty big in this one. Do I want to use my priority on some of these guys that came up right away, or do I want to do what Jared did, and he ended up, let's see, with Trey Turner towards the end of the draft, and he was holding on to his priority, and I'm assuming he was holding on to his priority for that specific reason because Trey's his boy. But the 2016 draft, it's really impacting our league still, like I said, and I think if you're looking at who won the draft, hands down, it's new Team 4. Here are the guys that he ended up drafting. I have 7 cats, and myself, Eddie Moneyball, we really had some big time prospects that really have come around, and they might not be on our team anymore, but I think as far as who crushed the draft, definitely new Team 4 with the win on this one. Okay, so now every team's got their base. We're looking at 2017 now. We've got our farm systems in place. Everyone's already drafted their 15 guys. Not a lot of guys ended up getting called up after our first year. And fast forwarding to 2017, we didn't need to do the email draft anymore because we didn't have a lot of spots that were open. So I think this is really probably, looking back on it, it's an interesting way we did it. It was, if you have an open spot, you are going to get to utilize your pick. So it was based off of regular season record from the previous year. So I think Big Mac with the first pick, he picked Nick Senzel. And then really, I don't think we understood the value of prospects at the time, because the next couple guys were guys that were MLB ready to help. DP went Grant Dayton, who was going to be a stud for the Dodgers as a relief role, but he was already in the MLB. Robert Gisellman went 1-6 to Dodger Blue, and Yulesky Gurriel went to 7 Cats with the 1-4 pick. We were just looking for guys to fill that were already MLB ready. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the 2017 draft because there were a lot of guys that didn't get picks. We're passing the 1-5 pick Beast had. That was passed because he didn't have an opening in the amateur draft. The 1-7 pick, Ventura Highway at the time, didn't pick. 1-11, so we had 3 teams that didn't even pick in the first round. The 2 notable picks where myself with the 1-8 with Eloy Jimenez that I ended up trading, and Josh with the second round 22nd pick in Vladdy Guerrero Jr., probably the most hyped prospect since Bryce Harper. And Josh ended up with him in the second round, and I'm sure, had some of those other teams had that pick open, maybe he doesn't fall that far. But of this draft, those are the two big guys that really have paid dividends going forward. All right, so the 2018 draft, the George Bush, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. Boom, we figured it out. Amazing, we've got it down now. 2018 was probably the greatest, best, perfect year to go to this format where, all right, everyone gets 3 picks. It's based off of your previous year's finish. No teams were getting skipped on their picks. It was just a straight draft. It was really a thing of beauty. We started to correspond the picks with the salary as well, and this draft was freaking loaded. I'm going to say that again. This draft was fucking double stuffed, double baked, fully loaded. Here are the top 10 picks. Ohtani, Acuna, Whitley, Bichette, Tatis, Gore, Lewis, Robert, Hunter Green, and Luis Gohara, and Brendan McKay to close it out with Sexto Sanchez. Those guys are playing big roles right now. And, I didn't really expect Acuna to become what he became, but I really hope that Ohtani, it turns it around. I mean, Ohtani has been my favorite prospect of all time, honestly. Going back on it now, looking at what Irby really had to decide with, I don't know if it was a tough decision for him. It was definitely one that I was trying to trade up to get Ohtani, and I settled for Acuna. And I actually went back through some of my Excel sheets, and in 2017 when I was scouting Acuna, the note next to him I wrote was nothing special. He really turned it on in 2017 and ended up being a top 5 prospect going into the 2018 draft. But had I had the first pick, I would have made the exact same choice on Ohtani. I'm really hoping that he can stay healthy and that the Angels utilize him as a hitter as well as a pitcher, and he doesn't end up falling it one way or another. But if you look at some of his data, he was a top 30 hitter. And if he just transitions to being a hitter, he's still going to be an amazing player. But that flexibility of being a utility player as well as being able to move him to the pitching spot made him the number 1 prospect. And it was probably an easy choice for Irby to take him. I would say 10 times out of 10, I would have still done that. And maybe not now if he offered me Ohtani, would I trade Acuna? But it's something that I would think about still, because Ohtani, with that double position eligibility, there's really no player like him. So once again, just hoping that Ohtani can stay healthy, because that's a player that I would like to see succeed. This draft also started what I would like to dub as the prospect whisperer, Jared Demo LaRiviere. This mother effer is either the luckiest prospect scout I've ever seen or the best. The dude just pulls studs. And I don't think anybody in our league finds more prospect-ready players than Jared. Here's a quick history of who he's picked throughout our drafts. 2016, he utilized his priority, he held on to it, and he ended up with Trey Turner, a top 5 guy most years if he can stay healthy. 2017 didn't really have anybody, but that draft was a bit off. 2018, he pulls Tatis as the 1-5 as well as Hura with 217. Both dudes that are gonna solidify his middle of the infield for the next 6 years. And then in 2019 with the 1-5 pick, he pulls big Pete Alonso, who's just raking. So this dude's already got pretty much his infield set for the next 6 years just off of minor league drafts. So the good news this year is that Jared does not currently possess the 1-5 pick, so hopefully he doesn't acquire it. And if he does draft the shortstop, I'm assuming that he's going to be the next greatest thing. So I would run out and trade with whatever pick Jared gets with the 1-4 pick. Looking at the 2018 draft, It's really not hard to say who won the draft, so I'll go ahead and say it. It was myself, Eddie Moneyball. I fucking crushed this draft. And it's probably the reason that I'm the current champ right now. Just looking at who I picked, I went Ronald Acuna 1-2, Luis Robert with the 1-8 pick. In the second round, I get Juan Soto, who I really wasn't expecting to break out and kind of was second in the Washington outfield prospects forever behind Victor Robles. And then we looked at the 332nd pick. I end up with Yordan Alvarez. And while I utilized a lot of them in a trade just to acquire the pitching, I think it really did allow me to open up this championship contender window for the next 2 years, and it really did allow me to capitalize on the 2019 championship. Looking at this draft, the most intriguing matchup that I'm actually looking forward to, and I'm not a pitcher guy, you guys know that, it's between Dodger Blue with Forrest Whitley and Hammy's pick of Mackenzie Gore. These two guys, Whitley had been the top pitching prospect for a couple of years, and he's got an amazing arsenal, but the Astros don't trust him because that dude is still in the minors. He's going to open up in AAA, and he might sit down there for a couple months, while Mackenzie Gore has just rocketed up the prospect rankings, and he's a top 10 pitcher now too. So I'm really excited to see these guys get to the majors this year and what kind of contributions they're going to provide for their teams. So like I said, those are the two pitchers that I'm really looking forward to this year and seeing where they end up in the majors. Going ahead, looking forward to the 2019 draft. We got another draft pick, another amateur draft, another top pick by Team Irby. He doubled up and ended up with the 1-1 and 1-2 pick. He takes Wander Franco, who's probably going to be the most hyped prospect. He might exceed Vlad, but he's definitely not on Vlad's level. I mean, he's super young still, and it's going to be a couple of years before he actually gets there. And Alex Kirilloff, these two were the top two guys, hands down, when we were looking at this draft. Those guys were easily going to be the top two picks. So Irby's got the best prospect in baseball, and then DP. I want to highlight two of his picks because Casey Mize and Brady Singer are two pitchers that I'm really high on and I think are going to end up contributing this year. Mize went with the 1-4 pick, and then he ended up, with Brady Singer in the third round. I think both those pitchers are going to end up being huge contributors to DP, and hopefully they stay healthy because DP really has had shit luck when it comes to pitchers and injuries. And my last thoughts on this before we transition to this year is, I said it before, our league as a whole has just gotten incredibly skilled at identifying and picking the right prospects. I used to do, and I still do, a ton of digging and analysis, but I think that, the guys that I'm hoping are slipping to me later in the rounds definitely aren't making it there anymore. Everyone's just pulling studs and really identifying guys that are either going to help them now or could be utilized as future trade picks. I'm really looking forward to this draft, and the main reason that I jumped up to the 1-1 pick is to get the guy that I want. And after this break, we'll get to my top 10. I'll talk. The PPBDL could be brought to us by steroids, the unofficial sponsor of the MLB since 1990. All right, so on to the main event. This one I'm going to have a PowerPoint slideshow for you, so I'm going to go ahead and get that ready. So I'm going to go through my top 10 prospects 10-1 for the upcoming amateur draft. So what I do is I compile an Excel sheet, any top 100 list that I can get in mostly from reputable sites. So we're talking about, RotoWire, Fantasy or Fantrax. So we go with Baseball Prospectus, Baseball America, the MLB, and then my least favorite, CBS, because they don't rank my players the way I feel about them. But after I take that, I just take their average, and then I just, smallest to largest, and then I'll filter out everybody who's already taken, and now I'm looking at the top 10 available players based on their site average. So without further ado, we'll start with number 10. Coming in at number 10 is Jason Dominguez. He is the ultimate flyer. I mean, getting ready to turn or just turned 17. This dude is a super tool phenom with hype just oozing all over him. Signing with the Yankees is only going to add fuel to the fire on what he's going to become. The Vlad Wander comps have already started to roll in, and this kid, like I said, just turned 17. Once he sees that minor league playing time, there's not a lot of actual stats on him. He's going to skyrocket. I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple years this guy's the top prospect in baseball. He's got plus speed, plus power. He's going to continue to grow. He's got he's 5'10", 190 pounds, so not your typical build, but I mean, if he continues to grow in height, maybe he fills out a bit more, and we're really looking at a stud. He's not one that I tend to target, mainly because of how young he is and how unproven he is in any minor league playing time. But this year, he might end up being one of the greatest picks in our draft. So the site ADP average has him 29.3, which puts him as the 24th overall prospect of all prospects. And I'm projecting him. He's not making it out of the top 8. If guys really start to hone in on him, he might go even higher. So the number 9 pick is Drew Waters, outfielder for the Atlanta Braves. Like I said, I'd gone through some of my Excel sheets and I ran across Acuna's name where I had wrote nothing exciting. This is exactly how I feel about Drew Waters, but I don't really think he's going to have the Acuna impact. He's projecting out to be a 2020 guy, but he lacks that elite power. So if the Fun Happy Ball decides to get put on hold and MLB goes back to regular baseballs, he might struggle to make it to 20 homers. He gets on base a lot, but somehow he strikes out a lot. So also see his numbers dipping when he got called up to AAA. And yeah, it's a small sample size, only 120 plate appearances, but that K rate is just really scary. I think he's probably maybe up this year, but he's really got to prove it at AAA. The Braves really don't need to rush him, so if he really is continuing to improve at AAA, maybe he's called up for a cup of coffee at the end of the year. I'm projecting him to fall into the second round unless someone really is excited for him. He's definitely not someone that I'm targeting. So the number 8 prospect is the only pitcher in the top 10 that's available. That's Matt Manning for the Detroit Tigers. Manning's a big 6'6" righty who dominated Double-A last year. I mean, we're talking 133 innings pitched, 2.56 ERA, sub-1 WHIP. He's got 3+ pitches, a fastball, curveball, and changeup. And he really shot up the rankings this year because he developed that changeup into a plus pitch. And, minor leaguers are really having trouble picking it up. He's also developed in some of the best command in the minor leagues. It's really hard to project him going forward since he's 22 years old already and he hasn't seen AAA. So I don't know what the what the Tigers are going to do with him this year. Are they going to throw him into AAA for a couple outings and then call him up? They don't really need him up yet. Him and Mize could just sit in the minors and play the control game because they're not really competing for anything this year. So it's really hard to figure out what's going to end up happening with Manning. I'm assuming he's going to go in the top 7 or 8 just because he's the only pitcher that's really available. So he might end up jumping up much higher than I'm expecting. But he's projected to be a number 2 or 3 starter in future years. All right, the number 6 prospect. Stop me if you've heard this one before. 19-year-old shortstop stud for the San Diego Padres. He's listed at 6'2", 185 pounds, known for his hit tool and speed, projects out to be a 20-30 guy who can get on base. Sound familiar, Jared? Yeah, this year the Padres replaced Tatis with Abrams. While he doesn't, project to have the power that Tatis does, his hit tool is projected to be better. We've got Machado and Tatis taking up the left side of the infield, so a move to center field seems pretty likely for Abrams in the future. I can't imagine the Padres using him in the trade. He was taken as the number 6 pick in the MLB draft this year. 70 grade hit and speed tool. He's an athletic dude with a simple approach, smooth swing. I just can't imagine him not panning out. Definitely a guy that I see could probably crack the top 5 in our draft. All right, coming in at 5, we've got Bobby Witt Jr. This has got Jared written all over it. He's the top high schooler in the nation. He's coming from a baseball family. And, if everything pans out, we're talking about a 35 homer, 25 stolen base type of shortstop. He's kind of just got it all for a high schooler. You kind of see the Bryce Harper comparisons and helium when it comes to Bobby Witt and where he stands with the prospect evaluators. For me, high schoolers tend to fall a tier below the international guys when it comes to do I believe it. I just don't know what Bobby Witt's really going to look like once he finally gets a full season in the minors. In 37 games with this year, he kind of struggled a little. His K percent was pretty low, but still just 317 OBP is something that's concerning me. Hopefully he can turn it around and have a little better hit tool. But he's got the plus power and the plus speed. He's got a Tulo comp on him already, pre-Tulo injuries. So, like I said, this guy's not making it past 5, probably not past 4 with Jared. But yeah, someone to definitely look at. All right, the number 4 prospect on our list, we've got Marco Luciano. He's one of the youngest guys on the list. He turned 18 in September. Nothing makes you feel old finding out what these kids are born after you graduated high school. But that's the trend of the J2 international signees, right? They're young guys who are really coming along and have panned out well when you look at, Vlad and Wander the last couple of years. These guys are getting identified early and they're getting taken early because they're not really failing. He's not your typical shortstop. He's 6'2", 280. His power is going to carry, but his stolen bases are going to thin out. He's probably a candidate to move to third or to the outfield in the coming years as he continues to grow. One of the scouts is saying that playing in San Francisco could cut into his home run total, but this guy's like a 35 homer bat in the making. So if teams want to wait a couple years, Luciano is going to be a steal. I think he's going to end up in the top 10, but definitely a wait and hold on him approach. Number 4, we're looking at the top hitter in college baseball, or the top power guy in college baseball, Andrew Vaughn, first baseman for the Chicago White Sox. He's likely the number 2 pick in our draft. I can't imagine him falling past that. He's got Pete Alonso comps and hypes, but a much better hit tool. This is going to be a 4-category monster who's projected a 70 hit, 70 power someday. He's already built for the majors. And the only thing that's really standing in his way is the White Sox don't have a place to put him with Abreu and Encarnacion being signed and being the club veterans. Either it's going to be an injury or a trade that ends up getting him up to the majors. So I'm not expecting him up this year. But what I am expecting him to do is absolutely demolish double and triple A pitching wherever he's at whatever level, while he waits for that roster spot to open up. And I also go as far as to say that he's so developed when it comes to hitting that I'm going to predict he has more walks than strikeouts in the minors this coming year. And he's definitely going to be a top 5 prospect next year if he doesn't get the call up already. All right, moving into our top 3. At number 3, Dylan Carlson, outfielder for the St. Louis Cardinals. This guy's narrative reminds me a lot of Acuna as well. He's coming out of nowhere. He wasn't very high in even the Cardinals' rankings of prospects last year, and he absolutely crushed. And now is not only their top prospect as well as a top 5 prospect.
in MLB. He's a 5-category stud who's going to push for 30-30 and hasn't had below a 342 OBP since 2016. I mean, if the Cardinals are serious about the Arenado trade and they pull the trigger and they're in their win now mode window, I think it's time to call Carlson up. If this kid can get up to the majors early enough, it would not surprise me if he ends up competing for the Rookie of the Year award. All right, number 2, we're going with Adley Rutschman, catcher for the Baltimore Orioles. So what do you do when you've got a guy in a dynasty league that is being compared as the next Buster Posey sitting there in the draft? Do you spend a top pick on a player who's projected to hit above 300 with 25 home runs and has excellent zone awareness, but also plays on the worst team in baseball at the worst position in baseball? That's what Rutschman is this year. I mean, he's the hardest player to project in the draft. He could go second. He could fall out of the top 5. I mean, there's only a couple catchers that are even in double-digit salaries, and we just saw Sal Perez get dropped. So we're talking about Grandal, Contreras, and Jackson are the only 3 guys that double digits. So Adley's going to immediately be one of the highest-paid catchers. But he's also on that rookie-controlled contract for 6 years. He's probably worth it. I'm not drafting him in the top 3 or 4, but he's probably going to end up getting picked at 3 or 4. I mean, this is going to be a top 10 prospect next year. He's going to be a perennial all-star catcher. It's just a matter of, do you want to invest that high and heavily in a guy that's probably playing 4 or 5 games a week, but will definitely be the top catcher for the foreseeable future. And number 1, the reason that I traded up to the 1-1 pick was to get this kid, Julio Rodriguez, outfielder for the Seattle Mariners. I have more confidence than him than in any outfielder that I've taken. And we're talking Acuna, Robert, Soto, Alvarez, which means he's probably not going to end up panning out as much as I want him to. But looking at the previous couple guys, I'm not taking Rutschman as a catcher, maybe Vaughn, but I don't really want to invest in a first baseman at that time, and then Carlson would be the other one. But like I said, I've got more faith in Julio than everyone in this draft. Baseball America's sitting here with Julio as a 70 hit tool, 70 power outlook already, and he hasn't even seen minor league pitching yet. He's going to be the top prospect next year, unless injury ends up getting in the way. And he's already getting the Vladdy, Wander, Franco comparisons. I mean, this guy's already the number 6 overall prospect. So, once the guys ahead of him end up moving out and getting called up, he's going to be sitting as the number 1 prospect. He's got that plus raw power to all fields, and he's able to make adjustments at the plate. And looking at some of the interviews I've watched with him on YouTube, this guy has just got the personality, the joy of a young kid that's getting ready for the show, and he's definitely going to be the number 1 pick coming up in our draft. All right, gents, that's going to conclude the first episode of the PPBDL YouTube channel. I'll be back here after our draft, and then I'll start doing some team roll-ups after the draft to see where everyone pans out. So hope you enjoy. Leave a comment, leave a like, and if you have any other things that you'd like me to discuss in the upcoming episodes, just let me know. Thanks. See ya.